All right, for our first hot topic of the new year, we are going with Lizzie Enders. Lizzie Enders, is this going to be a truth, a lie, or is this shenanigans?
That's straight on shenanigans. We're going to be picking boogers
Picking
for the
boogers.
next 5 minutes, y'all. So ESPN commentator, I guess you can call him a broadcaster, Booger McFarland. For those of you who are not familiar with Booger, Booger McFarland is a former NFL player. He actually won 2 Super Bowls in the NFL. And prior to this season, he was a commentator, like a sideline commentator on Monday Night Football before they fired him. They let him go. But he got
And he
most
was
of his
bad. He sucked.
I was going to say he got
He
most of his
sucked.
on Monday Night Football because he was kind of like the Yogi Berra of NFL commentating, where he would just make these statements or put forth these quotes that made absolutely no sense.
He sucked.
So fast forward to, I would say 2 weeks ago, we know that, former Washington football team quarterback Dwayne Haskins got into a lot of trouble for his second COVID violation of the season. This go round, he was caught with a bunch of scrippas. He says he wasn't in a script club, but that he was in his hotel room. The NFL said it didn't matter. You broke protocol. Plus, you don't play like you have, any talent in that dead arm of yours. So he got fined $40,000 for breaking COVID protocol. The following week, but they didn't get rid of him, the Washington football team, the following week because they needed him. Like their number one quarterback, starting quarterback, Alex Smith, hurt. So he couldn't play last week. They put Haskins in, and he sucked as he normally does. And so the day after, Washington football team released him based on, 2 years of mediocre play and a lot of controversy in Washington. Based on that, Mr. Booger McFarland decided to get that finger out and to dig deep in that nose and to pick some ridiculous and which he is not only, or which he was not only calling out Dwayne Haskins for his poor play over the past 2 years and for his controversies within Washington, but he decided to use this as an opportunity to call out Black players in the NFL in general. So, Neil, do you have his video of what he had to say? His
Unfortunately,
take
I've seen
on
this too
Black
many
NFL
times. Played in
players?
the NFL almost a decade. You played a long time. We've been around it for a long time. And oftentimes, young players, especially, and I'm going to go here, especially young African American players, because they make up 70% of this league. They come into this league and they ask themselves the wrong thing. They come into the league saying not, how can I be a better player? They don't say, how can I be a better teammate? They don't say, how can I be a better person? How can I get my organization over the hump? Here's what they come in saying. They come in saying, how can I build my brand better? How can I build my social media following better? How can I work out on Instagram and show everybody that I'm ready to go, but when I get to the game, I don't perform? Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately, is not the first case that I've seen like this.
Yes.
And it won't be the last. And it bothers me because a lot of it is the young African-American player. They come in and they don't take this as a business. It is still a game to them.
They look at it as football.
This ain't football, right, man. This is $1 billion.
Woo! Okay, so I had to get some Kleenex to, hand off to Mr. Booger McFarland. But so not only did he make that, assessment of Black NFL players, he also went on to compare Dwayne Haskins to a former Black NFL quarterback, Jamarcus Russell, who was basically a bust. He was a number one pick back when he was drafted, but to the Raiders, played 2 seasons with Raiders, but then he was a bust. But he failed to mention Mr. McFarland, Mr. Booger, all of the white NFL players who have been bust in the league. So my question to you all, before I give you some examples of white NFL players who actually have been far worse, both on the field and off the field, than Dwayne Haskins, what do you think of Mr. McFarland's assessment? And do you think it's fair? Do you think it's fair?
Let's start with Gianni Storm on this one.
Yeah, sure. So when he was
saying that, a part of me was like, is he saying this out of bias? Because you know how the saying goes, "It be your own people." So it's like,
Yo,
is he saying this out of like, yeah, is he saying this out of bias? Is he just saying this because he personally has a problem with just the African American men doing it, even though he's aware that other races are doing it as well, like this kind of issue. And then I thought maybe, like, what evidence does he have that it is only or a majority of African Americans? So I don't know. I feel like his judgment is biased and that it is kind of like wrong. It is wrong, but I don't know where he's coming from. Like I don't know why he got that judgment. So yeah.
Robbie Rock.
Robbie,
I think, yeah, I think that it's more anecdotal because if the NFL is comprised 70% of black players, okay, so the majority of the instances that you're going to see statistically are going to be with black players. I think that this really highlights the generational gap between the players because you have a former player who really took his hard knocks, and that's what it was about. You played hard, you trained hard. If you had a media presence, it was with the coaches and a panel after the game. And like you were saying, a lot of these young players are focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on building their brand, their social media presence. And when the teams and owners back up truckloads of money to young players in particular and tell them how special they are and how they're the next best thing, they can do no wrong. If you don't have the maturity, if you're not equipped to handle that, you're going to go off the rails like all of these other young men before them. I just think it's more the money and maturity. But yeah, I think his comments were anecdotal and maybe paternalistic, a little misguided.
That's a
yeah.
that's a good point. I mean, Robbie makes the best point in that we're talking about 70% African American players. So, of course, you're going to be able to point at a number of players who are African American who are inherently selfish because people are selfish. So, I mean, the numbers show themselves. But I mean, you're right. He did not point out all of the busts or the people who came in not taking it seriously. Like, I mean, I my first thought is Ryan Leaf. Um, I,
First round pick back in the day.
I mean, Manziel just recently. Johnny Manziel. How do you say his name? Manziel. Johnny Manziel.
Mansfield.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's a number of people to point at, and it's not just African Americans who have the problem. It's young kids coming into the league. So the fact that he did point out African Americans, I think, is unnecessary, and it doesn't help the situation when we're trying to, um, you know, bring positivity and it just doesn't help at all. Especially when we're talking Black Lives Matter and all that stuff right now. I mean, why are you degrading? I don't know. I wanted to disagree with you on this one, Lizzie, but it was hard.
Well, in Booger's defense, he made a comment because this generated a lot of controversy on social media, online. And so he put out a tweet afterwards, which said, "My message was to all players, which I said, but specifically to the part of the NFL that makes up almost 70% of the African American players." But if his message was to all players, he would not have had to pinpoint who to specifically say African American players, Black players. He would not have had to specifically compare Dwayne Haskins to a Jamarcus Russell, when in reality, Dwayne Haskins is more like Johnny Manziel when you talk about the off the field issues. Johnny Manziel, again, as Neil pointed out, Johnny Manziel came out of Texas A&M University in, I believe, in 2014. First round pick. He was the number 22 pick in that round, Heisman Trophy winner. But when he got drafted, when he came across the podium in his draft, this is what he did.
Yep.
This is what he
Money.
did.
Money. Yep. I remember that. Hmm.
He branded the name Johnny Football, which was a name that he got in high school that carried over with him in college onto the NFL. Johnny Football.
Yep.
Show me the money.
He
So here we
sucked.
have
And he was really bad too.
who came into the league who wasn't thinking about, he was drafted by the Browns, who came into the league who wasn't thinking about being the best quarterback that he could be for his team. He was thinking about the brand, Johnny Football. So he gets to the Browns and he's a bust. Not only does he suck on the field, but he had several controversies off the field,
Yep.
including his then girlfriend accusing him of domestic violence in a car. He went to rehab because he had alcohol and drug issues. None of these things were assigned to Dwayne Haskins,
Yep.
but yet you decided to choose the one black player who had a rough 2 years. And don't get me wrong, I think Dwayne Haskins has a lot of growing up to do.
He does.
I think he made a lot of mistakes in Washington, but his issues were his issues alone. Let's talk about the fact that at the start of the season, 10 black quarterbacks were starters in the league. Only one of the 10, Dwayne Haskins, had issues like this. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes, MVP, just won the Super Bowl last year. We're talking about Russell Wilson, Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, who just completed today his second straight 1,000-yard rushing season for a quarterback. But yet you choose to focus on Dwayne Haskins and say all of these black players, all they think about is branding and they're selfish and they're not thinking about being the best player for their team. That is a bunch of bullshit. And I'm so sick of people like Booger or Jason Whitlock or Sage Steele, African-American black journalists who make it a point to go after black players in the worst way possible. In the worst way possible.
Yeah, I feel like it's an easy target. It's an easy target to go after black players. And I think also like he could have, if it's something that he was genuinely interested or cared for the African American players, maybe it could have been a more personal or private discussion between teams or something like that. Maybe you said he's a journalist, right? Well, I mean that's what he does. He broadcasts.
Analyst, broadcast analyst.
Analyst now.
I wouldn't call him a
not
journalist.
He's an analyst now, but he's a former player. But also, too, when you talk about branding, I mean, why wouldn't these players be concerned about branding in a league where contracts are not guaranteed? It's not like Major League Baseball.
Right.
It's not like NBA. The contracts are not guaranteed. So you have to do something out there.
I love it.
Nice one, yo. Nice one. You have to do something to maximize your potential while you are still hot.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
All right, let's get to some of these comments online. Jacqueline Robbins says, tell it. There was a time when black men couldn't even be quarterbacks. Let's see. Jeanette Brown says, lots of drafted football players will not have had modeling or mentoring to prepare them for the NFL. And she also says, there's an unfortunate reality. Seems to me like this is an issue of age, not race. Not race.
Yeah, it's
And that's what I said. It's a maturity thing.
Yeah, and it's generational. Like players have more opportunities outside of just playing on the field than they had during the time when Booger was playing.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. That's true. Yeah.
Well, there's more endorsements to be had than the Wheaties box now.
Rivka says, pure example of what's wrong with the world. Why do we put down our own people just to look good? So, great hot topic, Lizzie. Great hot topic.
It's a Kleenex, Booger. It's some Kleenex, Booger. Clean yourself up, brother.
Booger. All right, let's move on to our next hot topic.